Hello, class. Today is Saturday, February 15th. We have a few special activities planned for you today, so let's get ready to participate. But for our virtual listeners out there, please make sure that you respond in writing to the case study that we'll be doing later here in class. It is a group assignment, but try your best to do it on your own and to solve the problem. And write up your answer in your missed class summary. You can post those missed class summaries in the Pilot Dropbox under the Assessment tab. But first, we're going to do a quick quality check. So please raise your hand if you can see the red record in the upper left corner, if you can see the quality check at the top of the PowerPoint slide, or if you can hear me adequately. Awesome, great. Let's get started then. So first up, I got a quick icebreaker or learning objectives. The students will be able to name and describe the three elements of the community of inquiry framework. Students can also describe the necessity for interdependence between cognitive and social and teaching presences. So now we have the icebreaker coming up. So real quick, just using the text chat, could everybody just put a couple words about your experience or opinion of group discussion in class? Like, do you think it's necessary? Do you think it's something that can be focused on too much? What's your opinion? And you can access the chat by clicking the purple tab on the bottom right-hand corner, and then click the speech bubble and type your response in the box that says, say something. Yeah, you're right. I've experienced that quite a bit in my own classes where people just get off topic and like stop talking about the subject at hand. That can be a real annoying part of it. And that's kind of good because we'll talk about that later in class, how like there are ways to kind of mitigate that off track kind of getting off topic in discussions. Yeah, sometimes it can leave people out of the conversation. I think that also is just a fault of the environment of the group discussion where it's like taking place in. Like not everybody's bought into like the goals of the class. All right, so that's awesome. Great responses. So let's move on real quick and get started. So first, we're going to talk about the community of inquiry framework. So the reason why I specifically mentioned group discussion is that I feel like a lot of times it exemplifies like what's kind of working right in a class. You have your instructors kind of chiming in. Sometimes you have people that are maybe more quiet that hopefully will jump in. Like you said, sometimes people just get left out of the conversation if they're not really bought into the class. And sometimes people can get off topic if there's not enough of like a teacher presence happening, where there's nothing to really guide or shape the conversation. But I think it's really important to have in classes, even though there's some of those pitfalls in there. Like that's kind of where the thinking collaboratively kind of shines, where you have the cognitive presence, the individual ideas merging with the outer world, the world of experience, like John Dewey was talking about, where you can get your misunderstandings checked and corrected. So specifically, like these communities, like I mentioned before, include three interdependent qualities that are necessary to create deep learning. These qualities are cognitive, social, and teaching presence. However, a group or class can only be a community of inquiry if all of these elements are present and interdependent on one another. So first, we'll talk about cognitive presence. This is the core thinking and learning element. It's where, like I said, Dewey's psychological world ideas comes into play. It's where it's the private world where things like thinking and personal reflection take place. It's a student's engagement with the content of the class and where they formulate ideas and create understanding in an individual level. Next, we have social presence, which is the ability for participants to identify with the group or the course of study, communicate purposefully in a trusting environment, and develop personal and effective relationships progressively by projecting their individual personalities. Social presence exists when students can identify with the goals of the group and carry on group discussions in a safe environment. And then we have teaching presence. This is the like as with any community with a goal, communities of inquiry need leadership to stay focused and on task. It's the element of the community of inquiry that keeps participants engaged and effective. It also exists in the design of the class materials or the planning of the class structure. The teaching presence also helps to set the tone of the group interaction and presides over the learning that the students receive. So really quick, I got a quick activity for you. So here there are 3 boxes. In the upper left-hand corner, there are 2 buttons that are black with white inside. It's the pencil button and the shape button. If you guys could quickly circle the box here, the blue, yellow, and green ones, circle the box that represents cognitive presence. There we go. Yeah, it's the yellow box. All right. Somebody want to circle the box that is more of a social presence? Yeah, the blue one for sure. And then can somebody circle the box that represents teaching presence? Perfect. Awesome. Looks like you guys got a hang of that. So we'll move on. Now, one important quality is interdependence. Like these different elements of the framework are interdependent on one another, and they need to be in order to create a sustained and effective community of inquiry. So this is kind of like where the Dewey's opinion on free inquiry comes into play, that merging of the world of ideas with the world of experience. But the way that the community of inquiry framework creates this would be the merging of the cognitive, social, and teaching presences. So here's like some examples of how they kind of interrelate with each other. With cognitive and social, those presences kind of merge when somebody, like a student, creates their own formulation of ideas. They express that idea to the group, and then in discussion, the group kind of talks about it, and then that's where those misunderstandings can be highlighted and brought into checked, corrected. And then vice versa, once that discussion happens, then students on their own, in their own private worlds, can kind of take that information and grow and develop their own understandings of the world outside. And then up next is social and teaching. As with any group discussion, it heavily relies on the atmosphere that the discussion would take place in. Like if you have students that don't share an identity or they're not really bought in, the discussion won't really happen. Additionally, every discussion needs facilitated. So this is where the teaching presence kind of merged with the social presence to it's up to the teaching presence to create a climate that makes students feel safe and engaged so that this discussion can be sustained. And also it's necessary to keep the discussion on track and focused. And then additionally, like between teaching and cognitive, the teaching presence also helps to regulate the learning that occurs on the individual level. Beyond just facilitating the students to go with each other, the teaching presence is also responsible for the content, designing the course, and directing the learning that occurs. So in your classes, like I know for me, like a good example of where this happens in the poetry field is workshopping. A student on their own creates a piece. This would represent like the cognitive presence. They bring it to the group for discussion, and the group kind of gives you ideas on how to make your piece better. And then, of course, the professor kind of acts more as a moderator to kind of keep the discussion focused and on track, and also make sure that that ideas are being thoroughly challenged, I would say. So that's just an example of how I would implement that into kind of my class structure. And real quick, I've got a case study for you guys. So we're going to end up breaking into groups. Let me set these up really quick. So don't go into your groups just yet. First, we're going to, let me kind of explain what's going on. I'm going to post a link in the chat. And if everybody that's live in today's session could join group one, I would appreciate it. What you guys are going to do, this is a link to some Google Slides. And if you could find your group number on the slide, answer the yellow box or read the prompt in the yellow box and then kind of collaborate and type your answers and responses into the gray box in the bottom. And then afterward, there will be a timer that's set for around 3 minutes. You'll have 3 minutes to work on it. Then afterward, if you could just all in the breakout rooms, and then I'll share everybody's responses. So if somebody could like maybe quickly walk us through what you guys have come up with. So if you guys want to go ahead and go into your breakout groups now, specifically if you all could do group one, that would be great. Whoops. There we go. All right. So now that the timing is over, let's go ahead and let me share the content that we had you guys came up with. Give me just 1 second. So is there anybody that wants to go over quickly and discuss what you guys came up with?
Sure. Yeah, so we were saying that the group might be experiencing a low social presence. So basically, if you feel that you're not connected on a social level to the people around you, then speaking might be awkward and weird. So that could be remedied by using a icebreaker activity or a few of those where students might interact at a less formal level while working towards a common goal. Another possibility would be for clear direction might not be there. So for that, you just give more explicit instructions as a teacher. And also, if there are no group discussions, period, that would especially make it difficult to engage in group discussions.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a really good example, especially I like the clear direction thing. I know that whenever I have workshops whenever I had workshops when I was in my undergrad, the professor was always there explaining like what the goal of the discussion was, how to make sure that people were constantly being respectful to each other. So yeah, I think you guys did a really good job on that response. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to pull up our PowerPoint again. All right. So in summary, the three aspects of the community of inquiry framework, the teaching, the social, and the cognitive presences, they're all necessary for maintaining an environment of inquiry, free inquiry. Additionally, they're all interdependent on each other. So that if one of these areas is lacking or non-existent, then you can't really call the class a community of inquiry. So, all right. If you guys have any questions, feel free to go ahead and raise your hand. If not, you can go ahead and send me an email. Email is right here at ramsey.55@wright.edu. So, does anybody have any questions? All right. Okay, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. You guys have a good day.